Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. This is Will Benish. Welcome to the March 2025 meeting of Community Board 2's Street Activities and Resiliency Committee. Today, our agenda is going to consist of a presentation regarding Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board, and we'll introduce that in a second, followed by our normal street activity agenda. So let me go ahead and quickly introduce who is here around the room. So again, I'm Will Benish. I'm the chair of the Street Activity Resiliency Committee. Here in the room, we have Ryder Kessler, we have Vice Chair Erica Olson, and we have Eddie Siegel, all of us committee members. And then our special guest with us today, who we are very excited to have, is Eric Dixon, who is a member of Manhattan's Solid Waste Advisory Board. And we're excited to hear more about that because in a way they are sort of the cousin to us as a community board in terms of another volunteer appointed board by the Manhattan Borough President. So we're excited to hear a bit more about that, as well as specifically the organics program that's being rolled out by DSNY. So I think without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to you, Eric. And we're going to be sharing some slides as well as that presentation is being made. We're going to go through the slides, I believe, and then Eric, you're going to have some time for questions as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much, Will, for the invitation to be here today, and to all of you. So I'm Eric Dixon. I'm a member of the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board, and my day job is as a professor in the politics department at NYU. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Good. Next slide's coming.
Yeah, we're going to turn down the.
The weather is nicer. I don't think we're going to be able to see quite yet.
Yeah. Okay.
So what is the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board? So in 1989, Local Law 19 created borough-level solid waste advisory boards to provide expertise for the city, as well as a kind of a way of informing the public about sanitation department issues. There are currently 4 boroughs that have active swabs, as in so many things in life. Staten Island is the exception. Each of the boards is appointed by the borough president of the respective borough. So MSWAB, we're organized as a nonprofit. We have around 35 or so volunteer members. We do a lot of things. So we're dedicated to increasing recycling, reducing solid waste, and advancing solid waste policy in New York, furthering New York's zero waste goals that have been on the books for some time. So what do we do specifically? We offer policy advice. We talk to members of the city council. We offer testimony at city budget meetings and in front of the city council sanitation committee, things like this. We inform the public and we collect expertise. Next slide, please. So what are the kinds of things that we work on? So if you attend community board meetings often, you know there are lots of committees attached to these things. So for us, many of those committees are focused on specific aspects of the waste stream, the hazards they pose to health or to the economic success of New York, and ways of trying to go about reducing or causing those waste streams to be less problematic. So we have an organics committee, we have a textiles committee, we have a couple of committees on recycling, including one that focuses specifically on public housing. We have other committees that kind of are engaged in bigger thinking about cycles of closed economies and reduce, reuse, and recycle ideas and how to export them and bring them into our daily lives. We have task forces on things that come up, such as a lot of recent research showing how prevalent microplastics are and how harmful they are to human health. And we have a legislative committee that focuses on interfacing with the city council and so on. Next slide, please.
And how many people are on the board?
About 35 or so.
35. Okay.
Yeah.
And to ask an impolite question, this does not involve the other kind of solid waste. Is that right?
Yeah, so I can't tell you anything about the poop emoji, unfortunately.
Okay.
When I told my friends that I was joining this board, of course, that's what they all thought it was about, but I haven't had to deal with that once.
Great.
So we have monthly meetings that are open to the public on the second Wednesday of every month. So the next one is coming up next week. These are both in person and via Zoom. You can find out more on the MSWAB website. Just as this committee meeting here is starting with a guest speaker, we generally have a guest speaker for the first hour. And these are often like really fascinating looks into specific aspects of the waste stream. So we've had people who work in textiles recycling, in carpet recycling, in paint recycling. We've had people who focus on the environmental damage that can happen after natural disasters and what to do with building materials, some of which might potentially be toxic in the aftermath of those disasters. We've had people speak about bottle reuse. We had recently someone who used to work recently at the EPA on pollution prevention, talking about a bunch of the issues that she'd worked on in the federal government. We have city council members. We have people who work for other kinds of nonprofits and advocacy groups as well, and the occasional academic mixed in. So these things are really interesting and diverse. And if you want to learn more about sanitation in New York, these talks are a great way to start. Next, please. And if I haven't convinced you yet that you too should join the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board, we're looking to add to our ranks. And it just so happens that applications are due by March 14th. So you can go to our website and learn more about that if you might like to get involved yourself. Next slide. Okay, so this is actually a really exciting time for waste management and environmental issues in New York politics. Of course, there have been a lot of changes in the city. We have the curbside organics program now. In recent years, we've had bans on plastic bags, foam containers. We have all of the containerization stuff that's going on. I just wanted to tell you a little bit as well about some things that might be, hopefully, coming down the pike from Albany in this legislative session. One is an extended producer responsibility bill that's being debated in the State Assembly and the State Senate presently, called the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act. So one problem with plastic, we often end up seeing this swept under the rug when we recycle our plastics, but typically in the US, only 5 or 6% of plastic is successfully recycled. So the best way to deal with this fossil fuel product is to just make less of it. So the point of extended producer responsibility bills is to incentivize producers and people in the packaging industry to create less. So this bill being debated in the last draft form that I saw would require reducing plastic packaging by 30% over the next little bit more than a decade, and further require that 70% of the remainder needs to be reused or recycled. In order to further these goals and to impose costs on manufacturers that kind of cover the externalities on society from the production of excess material, this act would further impose packaging fees on companies in a way that incentivizes reuse and recyclability. So if you're producing things that aren't reusable or recyclable, that fee will be higher, as well as helping municipalities cover waste management costs, which is something that in small towns around New York and around the United States is actually oftentimes a big part of municipality budgets. So rather than making local taxpayers pay for things, if manufacturers are producing too much packaging, then they can help foot the bill on that. This bill also is meant to prohibit a bunch of different kinds of dangerous chemicals and materials from being included in packaging that's sold in New York State, including so-called forever chemicals, PFAS, around which there's been a lot of research recently. Next slide, please. The other big thing coming up from Albany, potentially. Oh yeah, please.
What's the mechanism on that last bill?
How do you mean?
How is it incentivizing this reduction?
So a couple of different things. So companies are going to be required to document the amount of packaging they're producing. So there's just a brute force. You must produce less of it than you were producing before. It's like a pretty long bill. There's a bunch of provisions for companies that had preemptively done this before the bill was passed to make sure that grace is extended to them. So there's going to be quite a lot of accounting requirements on companies in terms of the amount of plastic that they're producing. And then these fees, there's going to be some sort of state board or I don't know exactly what the nature, whether it's governmental or non-governmental, an organization that's going to work on assessing specific fees for packaging.
But like I buy something off of Amazon with a big clamshell plastic package, doesn't need it.
Yeah.
So a company is not based in New York, like
So I don't know exactly in terms of the enforcement, exactly how that is going to work. That's a great question. And I think frankly, these are details they're probably still working out in Albany as well.
What did you say, like throughout a number, how much of the packaging is actually recycled in Manhattan? So like.
So plastics in the US are about 5 or 6% are typically recycled. So many of the kinds of things that the average Joe tosses into a recycling bin actually don't end up getting recycled. Many types of plastic simply, it's not economically feasible or worthwhile for anyone to do it. And so it just ends up never happening.
Next, know if this is this Senate Bill 1460?
I don't remember the number.
Just looking online. If so, then it's sponsored by our very own Brian Kavanaugh.
Oh, wow.
This says establishes extended producer responsibility for designated products. That sounds like it, right?
I thought
producer responsibility program fund.
So I thought that the specific bill, I thought Harkin was the.
Okay.
Last year he was.
Maybe there's
he was last year.
A different one.
Or is that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can ask Senator Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Because he seems somewhat at least involved in it somehow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide. Great. The other big thing happening at the state level is an attempt to improve bottle recycling in New York. So plastics recovery rates are very low. In New York City, in terms of aluminum cans or glass bottles, capture rates are somewhere around 50%, so much better than for plastics. But they still could be higher. And so the existing bottle bill in New York, which has a 5-cent deposit for certain kinds of bottles, has been in place for a long time. Of course, we all know inflation has been a thing. 5 cents isn't what it used to be. So this bill simply brings things back up to the times by increasing that bottle deposit from 5 to 10 cents. It also would keep a lot of people from spending their spare time trucking bottles to Connecticut, where the redemption fee is already 10 cents. It would require a larger range of bottles to be included in the program. So things like kombucha bottles and sports drinks are typically not included currently. And so this would be extending the sort of thing that you have on soda cans to those sorts of bottles as well. There are specific exemptions, milk and pure juice are still not going to be covered. Another problem with inflation that's happened over time is that some recycling centers have closed because the 3 cents that they're given out of that 5 was no longer enough for those businesses to be economically viable. And of course, as recycling centers close, people find it more inconvenient to do it, rates go down. And so to maintain economic incentives to run that sort of business, 6 out of the 10 cents is going to be going to recycling centers. And finally, there's going to be a refill requirement. So companies like Pepsi and Coca-Cola have already pledged to do this, that 30% of their bottles will be refilled. And, you know, it's a whole thing that some companies have come around to agreeing to do. This is just going to put that into state law. That beverage manufacturers are going to have to find a way to refill a quarter of their bottles in the next 5 years.
This is glass as well as aluminum.
Yeah.
Why do we exclude milk, formula, and juice?
That's a great question. Our friends in Albany have all sorts of carve outs from pretty much any law that you might put together. I think the idea is that for milk or infant formula, it's probably, you know, things that are necessary for children, and you don't want to add to the expense for people who are economically struggling for that kind of like vital for life material. But, you know, who knows? But pretty much any environmental bill that comes out of Albany, there's various things that are carved out for various reasons, some of which go unspoken.
Are the bottle producers on the hook for the deposit? I assume that was at the state level, but the state funds those redemptions, not the companies that produce them.
So the way this works is that you pay the deposit at the point of sale when you buy something, and then if somebody takes that bottle back, that deposit is paid back. So that's something that's not that's post consumer.
Yeah, cool. I guess I should have assumed deposit meant deposit with the actual company.
Yeah. So unlike the extended producer bills are the ones that are kind of going at the earlier levels of the production process. Cool. Next slide, please. Okay, so the meat of what I want to talk to you about is the New York City Curbside Organics Program. So this is something that has rolled out over the last couple of years across our city, one borough at a time. Organic waste is placed in brown bins and is picked up once a week in a way that's synchronized with recycling pickup. As of fall 2024, Manhattan joined the party toward the end of this rollout. Curbside organics participation is mandatory for the public, but enforcement hasn't started yet. But that's coming on April 1st of 2025, so in just a few weeks' time. Just to give you a sense, I just went to the sanitation department website just to double check. The current fines that it cites is that for apartment buildings or dwellings of fewer than 9 units, a first offense is $25, a second offense is $50, and third and subsequent offenses are $100. For larger apartment buildings of 9 or more units, those numbers are $100, $200, and $300 for subsequent violations.
How many have 9 or more?
9 or more. So this is something we'll see exactly how aggressively the city is going to go about. Obviously, you can have fines in practice. It depends on how many resources are put into enforcement and so on. But it's set to begin very shortly. We have other ways of dealing with organic waste in New York that some of which have pre-existed these brown bin rollouts. There are the so-called orange smart bins that are scattered around, including some in Community District 2 around here. And there are also community composting drop-off points in parks here and there. So I think the closest ones to here, there's one in Hell's Kitchen. There are a couple on the Lower East Side where you can go to parks and like drop off your organic waste, and have been able to do that for quite some time. And yeah, sorry, I should have said farmers markets as well. Union Square Farmers Market among them.
And this includes like the big belly bins that are QR coded, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the orange bins are QR coded, and you need to register on an app. The idea is to keep people from just throwing in random stuff that isn't appropriate for the organic waste stream.
There's one in Alita as well.
Yeah.
And we have also had, I mentioned to you, we had DSNY come present last fall.
Yeah.
And they talked about this, and I think there were a lot of questions about the fines, which it seems, when they're rolling out, there's still questions about with what level do they enforce? Like, what is an enforceable level of like organics that end up in the regular waste stream instead of, and I don't know if that's in the law or the rules, but.
Yeah, so the information that's publicly available just says that it's the fine for failure to separate organic waste. I mean, I very much doubt that if you have 2 M&Ms in your trash, that's what they're looking for. Certainly at first, you'd have to ask them. I mean, I think they're probably still figuring out in practice how that's going to work for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Well, may I ask a question, please?
Go for it.
Go ahead.
Hi, Will and Eric. Thank you for doing this very important program. I have a few questions and comments along the way. I've been writing them down as you speak. I didn't want to interrupt you, but regarding the EPR, the fees on packaging will ultimately raise the prices for all products that are purchased by consumers. You realize that this is going to be passed down to us, and we're going to be punished by the fact that some companies have not done or will not do the packaging, which needs to be done. But at the end of the day, how are you going to stop them from passing on these prices to the consumers, especially during the difficult times with high inflation and everything that's going on? That's number one. Number two, how do the bottles end up going back to the original manufacturers? You said Pepsi will have to refill the bottles. I love to see, will they have a magnet that all the bottles go back to where they belong? Number three, the most egregious thing that you've said so far, and I know that this is a constant problem with, as a building owner myself, that have tenants that refuse to do the right thing. I do everything correctly in terms of recycling everything.
Yeah.
I don't throw anything out that's not supposed to throw in the garbage. And I must tell you that I do have employees that have to go through the garbage, and it's not fair, it's not healthy, it's not wise, it's despicable to demand that employees of buildings go through people's garbage where there are many things in garbage, including soiled diapers, including condoms, including everything goes in the
Oh,
garbage.
sure. Yeah.
Why? Why?
Rocio, I'm gonna stop you there. I mean,
No, but I need to know because he talked about, our responsibility of getting fines. Why do apartment owner buildings have to get fined when they're not doing the wrong thing? The tenants are doing it. You must educate the tenants in order for them to do the right thing.
Rocio, okay, so let's remember that Eric is here to educate us. He's part of a volunteer board. He has not made any of those rules. So let's just remember that in the tone that we address him because he's volunteering his time.
I understand, but he has to bring this back to them.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah,
that's it.
I want to get the unvarnished opinions of people, the community, and just referring to your last point, it's routine regarding recycling these days that apartment building staff will go through to like pull out plastic bottles and so on, so the buildings won't be fined. Of course, it's not the same thing at all to ask them to pull out organic waste. And I don't think anybody expects that buildings are going to do that in the same sort of way because just of the gross factor that you're referring to. So I certainly agree. Tenants need to be educated. That's one reason I'm here. That's one reason why DSNY is doing the outreach efforts that they're doing as well. And presumably, buildings will also encourage their tenants not to abuse the trust and welfare of the employees that do so much work for them. Regarding passing things on to consumers from EPR, I'll just say briefly, of course, any tax on a company potentially could get passed on to consumers, like the tariffs that we're about to see implemented at the federal level. The idea behind the EPR, though, companies are competing in part on price, and they can sell products cheaper if they have less packaging, according to the incentives that the EPR bill is putting forward. So the fact that costs do get passed on to consumers, presumably businesses, that's going to be something that's going to motivate them to use less packaging to keep their products more competitive. But thank you for all your questions. And if there are more things you want to talk about at the end, I'd love to engage you on that. Next slide, please.
Amy.
Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I know I'm late. I'm sorry. I
Oh,
didn't
not
mean
a
to be
problem.
rude, but never mind. Anyway, so I live in a very large building.
Yeah.
About over 300 apartments.
Yeah.
Those fines seem really low for large buildings. I'm surprised that it's 9 and above. And is there, and also, how do you, for a building that large, how do they evaluate whether, because, the people picking up the garbage aren't opening the bags. How do they evaluate, how many people are actually?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So this is just, the DSNY's current statement about what the fine structure will be. Certainly treating a 9-unit building the same as a 300-unit building. Obviously, the amount of organic waste that a 300-unit building that's not compliant to put out is a lot more than a 9-unit building.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me as well. I would imagine that they're going to start with an initial strategy and then adapt it over time, depending on how things go. But they haven't sort of told us their exact thinking on these things. This is just the publicly available information that we have so far.
And then the other thing I want to ask is that I will admit I was a little late to start with this because I didn't have a bin that I could use, right? Is there any program for the city to, just like they go to, places where there are free summer camps and things like that and hand out water bottles, so they're not, is there any plan to hand out these, in apartment bins for lower cost or free for people?
So I'll get to this in a couple of slides.
Okay, all right.
So let me just come back to that, actually.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so before I get to some of the nitty gritty of the program, just a little bit of motivation for why so many people think this is so important. So why are curbside organics the thing to do? So one answer to that question is climate change. Next slide, please. So it turns out that one of the significant aspects to the carbon footprints of cities is methane emissions coming from landfills. So basically what happens is that organic material gets buried in big piles of trash. It decomposes slowly over time in conditions where there's very limited oxygen. The kinds of microbes that are present in those sorts of trash mounds that live in these environments that have very low oxygen levels. As they process organic material, they spit out methane. Now, methane doesn't last as long in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide does, but it's about 80 times as potent as a greenhouse gas in terms of the effect that it has on warming the planet while it is in the atmosphere. So the amount of methane that comes from landfills is high. It's recently been discovered that it's actually higher than was previously believed. And landfills, when it comes to methane emissions, are the third largest source in the world, according to the EPA. So this is one thing that we can do to help reduce the carbon footprint of cities that's relatively low-hanging fruit. Next slide, please. So the good thing is that composting takes place in different kinds of biochemical conditions. So if you've composted on like a farm or what have you, you don't put compost in enormous piles the size of landfills. It decomposes more quickly. People will rake over the compost. The idea there is to make sure that oxygen is present, because the microbes that digest the organic material in the presence of oxygen emit carbon dioxide instead of methane. That's still a greenhouse gas, but it's a much less potent one and is much less dangerous for climate change. Next. It's also something that's extraordinarily cost effective for cities. So a lot of people don't know this, but around 80% of New York City's waste is exported out of the city. Some of it to Pennsylvania on trains up to the Finger Lakes and other points far away. This is something that has environmental costs, particularly to areas that are receiving this waste. But there's also a big carbon footprint to moving that much material over those kinds of distances. On top of that, it costs the city around $500 million a year to ship and to get other people to take our garbage.
And we say export, it just means that the landfill is not physically located in.
Sent away from, sent outside the boundaries of New York City. Yeah, in some cases quite far. Yeah, not export in the sense of like sending it to Djibouti or Bolivia.
I know the US used to send a lot of plastic abroad. China, I think, stopped taking it.
A lot of developing countries have started pushing back, but not all. Okay, so of that $500 million the city spends kicking our trash out, around 40% of that, so because about 40% of the waste stream is organic waste, about 40% of that expense could be saved if organic waste were simply retained here and composted or dealt with in some other kind of way.
Is there, of the organic waste, is there a disproportionate amount that comes from one thing?
So there's a thing called the waste characterization study that's done every several years that you can look up online, and it goes into bone-breaking detail on exactly what comprises what parts of the waste stream. I don't know, I don't have figures on the top of my head for like what components of organics we're talking about specifically. Set against all of this, the brown bin program, as I understand it, is currently set to cost $20 or $30 million a year. So this is basically something that can lead to pretty big savings for the city during straitened economic times.
Is there an additional cost with more organic waste flowing to whatever the end result of it is? So whether is there additional cost of basically transforming it into some sort of biofuel? Mm-hmm. Like, does that $20 to $30 million capture everything? Like if that entire 200 million of organic waste was because that looks pretty compelling as it is. So I'm wondering if all of that was suddenly composted, like, I mean, there's probably still a savings, but is it that much?
I haven't looked at the spreadsheet behind those numbers, so I don't know exactly what they're including in those figures. I think it's safe to say regardless that the cost savings is really high. Next, please. And then finally, as somebody who's lived in the neighborhood for 22 years, whenever I had friends come to New York, they always marveled at the big piles of black trash bags that were lying on the streets and the rat feasts that would take place all the time. Brown organic bins are things that latch. You can have organic material set aside in a rat-proof kind of way. So along with other aspects of containerization, this is another benefit of the program. Next. So how do you participate? So there was a period of free distribution of brown bins. That has sadly ended. But you can buy one online at www.bins.nyc. The price as of today was $43.47. If you have a container of your own that locks shut, you can use that and you can get a free sticker and just slap it on, and that becomes a compost bin. So you don't need to buy one of those things if you already have a suitable container yourself.
Well,
Rosia, do you have another question?
I do, regarding the containers, the brown containers.
Yeah,
It is
please.
it is my understanding, because I've taken dozens and dozens of rat classes, the webinars that Department of Health puts out.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as the rat proof unless it's metal. Rats don't like to go through metal, or they don't
Yeah.
like to go through glass. So
Yeah.
you're stating that these are rat proof because they have a cover. And if you have any experience in managing properties such as I do, you will see that we have to constantly replace the containers, the plastic containers, because the rats will eat approximately 2 or 3 inches from the bottom of the container. There will be a hole where the rats go and eat the food. Now, you say that these bins are rat proof. Tell me about that, because
They are
a lot of people.
They are substantially more difficult for rats to get through than garbage bags on the street. And if you need to, you may well need to replace them occasionally. I don't think we've ever had to do that in our building. We've had a private hauler for quite some time. But it's a big step up in making it harder for rats. So it's closer to the platonic ideal of rat proof, as a more precise way of putting it, I suppose. But thank you. That is an important point, that rats can get through more or less anything if you give them enough time.
And how are they made? How are these containers made any differently from any other plastic container that's used for?
Well, a plastic bag, the plastic's extremely thin and it's pliable, and a rat can slash into it in no time flat.
Just comparing it to other bins.
Oh, comparing it to other bins.
Yes.
I'm afraid I'm not a professional in bin architecture, so you probably know a lot more about it than I do, it sounds like. So maybe I should get your
Also,
info and we can talk about it sometime.
If you had a metal bin,
Yeah.
could you use that if it latched and put a sticker on it?
Yeah, from my understanding, I don't think it says it. I don't think it specifies the material. I think the SNY site just says it has to latch and be smaller than a certain size. So I think that's fine. Anyway, next slide. So just zooming in on that sticker, oftentimes with things like organic diversion, people are worried about what are the rules, what can I throw away? This is all made pretty straightforward. Composting programs in some places exclude meat or fish or dairy. That's not the case here. If it's something that grows out of the ground or that you eat, you can throw it in. So meat's fine, dairy's fine, and so on, as well as food soil paper, up to and including things the size of pizza boxes. All can be included in the brown bins. Makes it a little bit easier. You're not having to be picky about what you're putting in there. Next slide, please. So how do you participate? Line the organic bin with something to keep it clean, so you don't want it to smell bad, so that rats eventually gnaw through it, as you pointed out. It depends on your household. A lot of people, including me, I have a little compostable container I keep in my freezer. And so I don't have to go downstairs every time I cook dinner. I can just sort of, go down every now and then. And that kind of reduces the cost of it. It means there's no smell in the apartment and things of that nature. And so if you have space in your freezer, that's a recommended kind of technique. And once you get used to doing this and kind of figure out your routine, it's easier and less of a pain than you might tend to worry about at first. Next slide. So what happens to brown bin organic waste? I've used the word composting a few times. I want to be a little bit more transparent about how the city program actually works. Much of the brown bin stuff is not sent to compost, which environmentally would be the ideal outcome. Something like 80–85% of the organic waste that goes into brown bins or is placed into the orange smart bins goes to anaerobic co-digesters. So the truck comes along, They pick up the organic material, they drop it off most commonly at the Varick site in Brooklyn near the Newtown Creek. They kind of turn it into a slurry by squeezing the hell out of it, and it ends up at the Newtown Creek anaerobic digestion facility. So this is in waste management, there's a debate between different ways of dealing with organic waste. What happens at the Newtown Creek facility is that it produces biogas as an energy resource. That's basically methane heavy. But methane, if it's burned, it's better than just letting it into the atmosphere because it's basically burned into CO2, which is a less problematic greenhouse gas. There are problems with anaerobic co-digestion, including toxic byproducts that can result. So we at the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board tend to be pro-compost, but this is what the city is doing with a good amount of the organic waste at this point. There is happily a large and easily expandable compost facility in Staten Island. Not too long before she moved on to become police commissioner, Jessica Tisch announced a massive expansion of that Staten Island facility, which in theory would be large enough to accept a large fraction of the organic waste from all around New York City as the program eventually grows. But anyway, this is what happens. Sorry. This is what happens with brown bin organic waste at the moment.
Hit the wrong thing.
Yeah, no, I sounded like Darth Vader there. Next slide.
Who pulls out,
No, go ahead.
who, like, you know how they allow you to put it in plastic? The plastic obviously isn't compostable. So who pulls the plastic bags out?
Yeah, so as with recycling centers, basically if there's like a big plastic bag full of something, when it arrives at the facility, it'll be slashed open and the good stuff is poured out and the plastic bags are discarded. Yeah.
So we can't see it on the screen, but I see Rocio on here. Is that your compost bin? She's holding up a bin.
I don't see it.
Yeah, we can't see it on the big screen.
But it is my container
Here.
for coffee,
Here.
an empty can of coffee. And
Oh, yeah.
so I put a bag
Yeah.
inside
Yeah.
and I have a cover
Mm-hmm.
and I cover it
Mm-hmm.
and I keep it on top of my counter.
Yeah.
So
No,
this is how I contribute.
yeah. No, it's perfect.
Anyway, everyone should have one of these on top of their counter.
Or in their fridge or their freezer if they have room, even better. Yeah, no, that's great. If everybody in New York City did that, we'd be a less warm planet. Okay, so
Education.
that's why I'm here tonight.
And I do I'm in the freezer and hopefully most people here are doing that too. So we're gonna keep pushing it.
Spread the word. So how is all this going? How much of the organic waste that the city produces is actually being picked up by this program? Next slide.
I thought you were gonna make us guess.
Oh,
Wasn't it
I could make a guess.
15%, I thought?
It's even less.
Less.
It's even less. Samantha McBride is a former DSNY person who's a professor at Baruch College. She's been doing a series of analyses with publicly available data. The New York City open data system is amazing. You can learn how many tons of different kinds of things are collected in the waste stream in each sanitation district, sanitation districts being coterminous with community districts. And so you can take this data and you can infer around what fraction of organic waste is being captured based on information in past waste characterization reports. Next slide. And the answer is that we're sort of in the high single digits for the most part in terms of the capture rate of organics at this point. If you break it down month by month at the community district level, that's basically the story. It varies a little bit seasonally. It varies a little bit from one kind of neighborhood to another. Even in our own glorious community district 2, however, organics recovery rates are kind of fluctuating in the 6 to 8% range, depending on what month we're talking about. That's not a lot. And when you're thinking about the fact that the city's spending $20 or $30 million on the program, there's a carbon footprint, all these trucks running around picking up organic waste. It's important in terms of keeping the program politically viable in the long run. that we do better in getting those rates up and showing more of a benefit in terms of methane emissions reductions.
Are you aware of a benchmark that like would be a good number to hit in like other cities?
Well, so one bullet point there gives you.
Oh, sorry, it's right there in the.
Yeah, no worries. I was just turning to it. So in Seattle, the organics recovery rate has been stable around 60% for a while. Now, it's Seattle. Also, they've been doing it for a while. Also, they have a different incentive structure. They have something called pay as you throw, which involves basically households are paying depending on how much trash they're throwing away.
Yes, I was gonna say.
But not counting organic waste if it's going to the compost stream, right? So households are incentivized by that way that the sanitation department interacts with Seattleites. And that's, of course, a kind of financial incentive that can help motivate behavior above and beyond the kind of environmental reasons that people might want to be engaged in it. Another benchmark is New York City's recycling rate. So glass and aluminum captures around 50%, which is decent.
That's pretty
If we would love it, and I think the city's long-range plan said they hoped that we would get up to 50% once the program hit steady state. So let's see what we could do. Yes.
Two things. I'm sure New York City's aware of this, but I know people in Austria where they don't care what you throw out, but it's the weight of what you throw out. They're not even bothering. I mean, they are composting, and that's how people get their amount, but they are taxed on how much, whatever it is, barring that. But I'm not saying they're going to do the right way, but a question for you. So there are neighborhoods that have been composting a lot longer than, say, Community Board 2. Do they have the data at that kind of granular level? Is it better in Brooklyn than those neighborhoods have been doing it for a few years?
My sense is that longer exposure to the program means that things are a little higher, but we're not talking they're like at 30%.
Okay.
It's like a handful of points higher.
Okay.
So clearly a little bit more needs to be done in terms of public outreach. Of course, there haven't been fines anywhere in the city yet regarding failure to divert organic waste, and that's coming in a few weeks. And so perhaps that'll be one thing that makes a difference.
Just curious, do you know if anywhere else in the US other than Seattle has that pay-as-you-throw program?
I think a few cities do. I don't want to say anything incorrect, but I can triple check. A few cities do, but I just don't want to get the wrong ones. Next, please. Okay, so what are some of the obstacles to participation in curbside organics programs? People may not know about it. It's a busy world and there's lots of things in the news that demand our attention these days. People may not be aware of what the sanitation department is up to. Lack of awareness that the brown bin program is mandatory. Lack of awareness of the fact that methane emissions are important and that this is actually something that we can do that helps quite immediately in improving them. It's just, changing our ways is always difficult. Psychologists, over all sorts of realms of human behavior, marvel at how hard it is to get people to adopt new behaviors. Concern about pests, oftentimes justifiable concern, of course, or about unpleasant smells. But if you have a nice container like the one we were shown on your countertop, or you stick it in the freezer, that's less of a problem than you might think. Apartment buildings are their own political systems, especially large ones, building management companies, building supers, employees. Of course, building staff are not going to want to sift through trash to do what tenants should be doing in terms of separating organics from the waste stream. And we can't expect building staff to do that. So there's just a lot of different, when you think about it, layers that you have to get through. And one thing that we're doing right now at MSWAB is we're working hard on trying to do this. So we've been running messaging experiments where we're testing different sorts of motivational messaging around composting and organic waste to see what seems to influence people. We're undertaking surveys and interviews with different kinds of stakeholders in co-ops, condo buildings, and building management companies to learn what the roadblocks are and what kinds of things we might be able to do to help. And we're going out and talking to people at different kinds of community organizations like I'm doing today. Next. And so that raised hand is appropriate because I'm done. And I would just love to hear more of your thoughts. Help us find venues where we can spread the word. Help us shape the policy advice that we offer to the city council. And any ideas you have for outreach, messaging, how to make this easier and more successful. You can reach out to me now or later, next slide, and let me know. And here's contact information both for me and for the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board as a whole. I guess the Q&A sort of started an hour ago, which is great, but I'm happy to, for as much time as you have with your committee business, I'm happy to continue the discussion.
Cool. That tends to happen with us because we're a very curious.
Oh, I love it.
Bunch, clearly.
Oh, it's great. It's like an academic seminar.
Yeah. Yeah. Rocio, you want to kick it up? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I have a great suggestion for you, Eric.
Yeah,
To the legislature, you should maybe have them pass a law that requires tenants to pass a course each year upon their lease renewal. And if they don't take the class, they don't get a new lease. How's that? Even the rent regulated ones, make them take the class because they need to do the job. Thank you.
Well, when I signed a new lease recently, and there's lots of riders and lead paint and all sorts of things that you have to go through. So why not? Thank you. That's a great idea. I haven't heard that one yet, so I wrote it down.
So for a while, I rented out an apartment, and I had to put a sign on the inside of the door about, fire, how about requiring that landlords put a sign on the door about the recycling? Right, so they've got the two right inside your door. You've got the fire thing. Yeah. And you've got the recycling thing. And you see it every time you leave the apartment.
Great.
Or you could have it above the trash, right by the trash chute. That's already required.
It's already required.
Okay.
Yeah.
Property owners already have to put up signs to tell tenants to recycle and to do composting. We already have to do that. It has to be part of their culture, part of their idea to do this. We can't, beat their heads against the ground and say you have to do this. But somehow or other, we have to let them know this has to be done.
Yeah.
I was suggesting, Marcia, that it would be inside their apartment on their door, right by the fire one. So that every time they leave their apartment, they see the recycling sign.
I assume you've already gone to all of the major building management companies.
We're in the process of going through this, quite a lot of them. And we've been going to organizations that have large numbers of co-op and condo association members. So we're doing everything we can to sort of learn where the pressure points are, where we can help the most.
Right on.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question. My first, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
That wasn't the comment though.
Okay.
A comment, the conversation we've just been having reminds me, my brother's a behavioral economist and he studies pro-social behavior.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a lot of good academic research about how to increase compliance. I recall an experiment he either did or told me about trying to get people to reuse their towels in hotels. And the most effective messaging isn't it helps the environment or what have you. It's 70% of people who stayed here before reuse their hotel. So or their towel. So I think 60% of people in Seattle can compost, but only 6% in New York. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So as a political scientist, I'm basically half behavioral economist and half social psychologist. With the sort of work that I do. So there's a really big literature. What you just described is the difference between descriptive norms, saying how others behave, and injunctive norms, what you should do. And descriptive ones are in many spheres more powerful. So you're spot on.
Well, I think you can leverage your position on the SWAB to get that into the rulemaking. But my question is actually more about the SWAB. Do people say SWAB?
We say it all the time.
Okay.
If we're dealing with the things we're dealing with, SWAB is kind of the perfect acronym.
Right. I'm curious about the kind of political role that the SWAB plays in advocating for this. These are the rules now and you're educating us about them, but did the SWAB play a role in getting this kind of policy passed? And I'm curious too, with trash containerization, I think it's a sensible approach to an alternative to trash bags on the street, but we seem quite tied to our trash bags on the street. Is the SWAB kind of a force for containerization, or as in many boards of community members, is it more of a status quo oriented?
No, it's not a status quo oriented outfit. We're not, so we don't endorse candidates. We don't do campaigning for politicians or anything like that. That's not our role. But we provide expertise, we make recommendations, we advocate, we talk to city council members or sometimes to people in Albany as well. And so, certainly when it came to things like the plastic bag ban, this was before I joined the SWAB, but they were active, the foam container bag, things like that. And we've certainly been advocating for the curbside organics program for quite a long time.
And what about general containerization?
That's not something that we have talked about within our ranks nearly as much as those other things.
Got it. Cool, thank you.
So kind of just on top of that, like we as community board, will pass resolutions, right, taking positions.
Yeah.
Does SWAB do something similar? Okay, so you'll have like resolutions.
Yeah.
Come out of the committees and then you'll vote.
Yeah,
we do.
We pass resolutions like you do. I think it's a smaller fraction of our workload, and we do it less often than the community boards do. But we do that sometimes. Or there'll be like a public statement or like a document that's like all four of the SWABs communicating at the same time with the force of all of that expertise, making some recommendation. So we do from time to time have that kind of program.
Ready?
Is there I'm sorry.
Okay. Does the SWAB have any opinion on bins per building versus, let's say, parking side, block level distribution of garbage where it's individual tenants who are going out there and putting their stuff out themselves?
So this is the sort of thing that our expertise doesn't particularly cover. This is essentially a political decision, right? That DSNY is making about, the trade-offs between, do you want to disincentivize cars by taking away parking spaces? Do you not want to do that? That's a kind of implementation question that DSNY is doing without a whole lot of input from us. We're focusing on the kind of, there should be a curbside organics program. We want to make it work, that kind of thing. Got it.
So you're talking about doing resolutions or statements. Is there something a community board can do if it wants to support your work? Like, is there a type?
Yes.
Well, would you give us that information and are there certain resolutions that would be helpful? Or I'm not sure, we'd have to discuss it, but what, besides, having this meeting, but only so many people come to the meeting.
So one reason I'm delighted to be here today, as Will said at the beginning, we're kind of the cousins of the community boards. We're volunteers appointed by the borough president, just like y'all are. And I think we should talk to each other more. And you have a lot of, neighborhood level, street level knowledge that we lack that could help with implementation of programs like the ones that I'm talking about. And it would be great if we would join forces more than we do. And I hope I won't be a stranger here.
Do you ever have community boards sort of echoing your resolutions in their own resolutions? Is that something that you know about, or does that happen?
It's not something, I'm sure it's happened at some point, but it's not something that I have heard about much. So I don't think it's terribly common, but it should be.
That's what kind of I was getting at.
It should be.
We are talking to each other.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. It's kind of silly that we don't. It's not like there's never been any historical contact between the SWABs and the community boards, but it just hasn't been nearly enough, I think.
Yeah. Rocio?
I have another suggestion, Eric. I think you should speak with the tenant advocate groups that speak to tenants regarding the laws, regarding their protections and all that. But I think that if you reach out to them, perhaps they also could be teachers and leaders so that the tenants do the right thing and do the composting. So I think it would be a good idea to reach out to tenant advocate groups, Metropolitan Tenant Association, and there's many of them that talk to tenants. So that would be an ideal thing, I think.
That's a great idea. And to my knowledge, none of us have done that yet. So that's very helpful. Thank you.
That's a good idea.
I have one other
Yes, go ahead.
communications idea. You're probably doing this, but doing something big in schools, because I remember reading that one of the ways they lessen smoking is
Yeah.
because kids are going and saying, Dad, why are you smoking?
Mhm.
Or Mom, why aren't we composting? So what kinds of things are you doing to make kids, I'm not saying brainwash them, but become messengers for the program?
We've talked, I can't remember the name of the organization, but at some point we did talk to an organization that was doing outreach in schools, and they were reporting exactly what you said, that sometimes the child is the parent of the father, and kids do pass on a lot to their parents. Sadly, we don't control the school curriculum, but more events in schools would be great.
And how do you make that happen? Would that be through the DSNY, or how does that happen?
So oftentimes, there are lots of community-based organizations. We had some brilliant talks a while back about some folks who worked in some of the NYFTA housing buildings, and they had created, through events and like a very, very local sense of community. They got people excited about recycling or composting in a way that was kind of rooted in the social life of a place. And so oftentimes when we see successes of this kind of outreach, it's like hyper local, and it involves people who've like invested in that kind of community building. And so, partner organizations are really, really helpful. There's only 35 of us, and we work hard, and we do a lot of things, but getting to all the schools in New York City or something, we definitely need partners.
So we can talk about this offline, but I was associated with the United Neighborhood Houses, which is the umbrella group for all the settlement houses through all communities. And they would be a great place for you to go in and talk to them about supplying materials that they could then, digital materials that people could do. And they have youth programs. I'd be happy. That would be helpful. I'll give you my information. I'd be happy to make that connection with.
That sounds like exactly the sort of thing we're looking for.
Okay, sure.
I have an idea which also might be a little off the wall, and it would require a small budget, but what if you did in like various parks and public places, what if you made like branded little containers, kind of like what Rocio had, but you could put like the Manhattan SWAB like logo, and then they would be like really sturdy, like small latchable containers that you could put either in your freezer or whatever on your countertop or on top of your fridge or whatever, and then you could do like a few like giveaways of those where you're like people can get the containers, and then you're also just spreading education that way. Because I would love to have like a cool little branded compost container. Because right now I just have it in like Ziploc bag in my freezer.
Yeah, no, well, like we were hearing about from the online comment, we've actually heard of a handful of apartment buildings who've distributed those to tenants as a way of trying to encourage tenants to do the separation that they're supposed to do, thereby saving a lot of grief for building folk. So, maybe buildings have an economic incentive to do that sort of thing, and the resources to do it as well. Actually, so. Great idea. Yeah.
Maybe like a city, maybe someone from the city council could use some discretionary funds, and like it wouldn't have to be a huge amount, but just enough. To get, there's education component, and some people will get for free.
No, it sounds like a fun idea. Yeah, and also it gets our beautiful logo out there in the world more.
Yeah.
Great.
Anything else?
Thank you for this totally garbage presentation.
Thank you all. And could you put my contact info just up one last time, just in case anybody wants to screenshot it or something? I would love to get more.
I will text you.
I'll put it in the chat.
You'll put it in put my email in the chat. Yeah, that'd be great.
And these slides are going to be on our website, Mark, right?
They certainly can, sure.
Oh, I thought that was.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
I'm gonna send you.
I thought that was already in the email.
Yeah, please. Great, thank you. It's good
My
stuff.
name's.
I can put it in the chat. Unless someone else is doing it.
I have it in the notes so we can put it in the.
It's put in the chat.
I'm gonna follow you on Instagram.
There we go. My grand total of 2 posts, but a lot more are coming.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. onward to our agenda. So let's see, okay. We're now gonna proceed to street activity applications. So if I call your event, please raise your hand to be promoted to panelists. So first, we have March 15th, Fever Tree at Broadway, NYFTA sponsor, Broadway between Prince and Houston.
That's already coming up.
Thank you.
Hey, Arfi?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me again.
So if you just want to give a quick overview of the event, and then we'll have questions after that, and I will see if I can share materials as well. So go ahead.
So I am presenting on behalf of Fever Tree, one of our longstanding clients. They are looking to do a one-day pop-up in the Soho area. So this would actually be right in front of where the Prada and Other Stories is on 575 Broadway. We are going to be activating with our small coffee cart, serving out mocha lattes using their new espresso martini mix. Obviously non-alcoholic. They did come out with the espresso martini tonic about like 10 months ago, but they do want to gain some more brand awareness by promoting it in Soho and giving out free mocha lattes and just having some brand awareness. We will be having 3 brand ambassadors on site and 1 support staff member who will be managing the lines. We're looking at giving out about 100 to 150 as far as the giveaway goes. And then as far as line control, we'll have that done with the BAs. We'll also be providing our own trash cans with the bags in them. We'll clean it out and take it back to our warehouse for disposal.
Thank you. You didn't submit a you didn't submit a diagram to us, did you?
I think I did, but I can also share my screen to show you guys my.
Yeah, that would be great.
Give me one moment. Great. Can everyone see?
Yes, thank you so much.
So this is our cart. Just for reference, the wrap will look different since this was for another activation, but our plan is to load in and set up around 7 a.m. Service would be between 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then we'd load out at 5:30 p.m. And then the site map would be, the cart would be right here. Our line would be down the block, and then we'd have stanchions to control that line.
So 575 Broadway, and the line runs along the curb.
Correct.
Are you going to close the curb lane there, or are people just going to stand on the sidewalk along the curb?
It would be the sidewalk.
And then you said 100 to 150. So after you give away the 150, is that kind of it?
Yeah, that would be it. I think we'd still have the card up there just for brand awareness, kind of like a backdrop if people want to have some pictures taken.
Okay. And is there going to be any amplified sound?
No amplified sound.
And in terms of sanitation, are there going to be trash bags for folks to throw away the cup? Is it going to be in a cup or glass or?
Yep, it's going to be in a branded Fever Tree cup, and we will have our own trash cans set up around the area, and we'll make sure to collect that trash and dispose of it in our warehouse after the event.
Okay, great. What is at 5? Is there a store that you're in front of at 575 Broadway?
It's near the Prada. We won't be directly in front of that store. We'll be in between Prada and Other Stories, but we have activated there in the past, and the property has okayed the activation.
Okay. And no influencers or celebrities?
No.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to the committee. Questions?
Easy.
I see Pete Davies has a hand raised, so I'm going to promote Pete to comment. Hey, Pete.
Yeah, I had to go through the rigmarole of switching
Anyway, hi, Pete Davies, Broadway Residents Coalition in Soho. So this corner is probably the busiest corner on the corridor. And that northwest corner where you're talking about using, because of the subway and just the flow of people, is an incredibly congested corner. I see that you're moving it north of Prada to some degree. I would suggest that the farther you can move it north of Prada to relieve any congestion at the corner. I know y'all love the congestion, but it really creates a problem. And that right turn from Broadway to Prince, you really need that curb lane for the turn. So the more you can move all the vehicles and everything north, it really just helps the flow of everything at that intersection. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Pete. We are definitely open to moving the actual cart a bit more towards other stories and making sure the line is towards Houston instead of Prince to relieve that. Because we also want to make sure it's not too congested for our brand ambassadors in line.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mention the line. The line would be at the curb?
Yes, the line would be on the curb towards Houston. So north.
Houston.
All right. I'm actually an LA local, so.
Forgive you.
And that's, that's something else. It's just really important to understand the nuances of all these public spaces that are given over, because it really impacts both the businesses, but more so the residents. Thanks.
I think in front of and other stories is far preferable. And if the line could go north toward Houston as well.
Yeah, we can confirm.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
There's a question. Do you know the size of the samples, RP?
They are 8-ounce cups.
8-ounce cups of espresso mix. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, now next we have, I don't know if this is you, RP, or someone else, but Gansevoort Plaza, also New York Food Truck Association. I also see a McKenna Bass, if we could promote McKenna.
McKenna will take over from my
Okay,
team.
great. So this is in the Gansevoort Pedestrian Plaza, March 21st to March 23rd. So McKenna and Adam, if we could promote.
Thank you.
Great.
Hello.
They do like, they were known for like their ginger, for their tonic, really high quality tonic. Okay, yes, hi McKenna, hi Adam, thanks for joining. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. So please go ahead. You can share your screen if you like, or I can try to pull it up myself, up to you.
Let me share my screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to share? I have the rendering and site plan in ROS if you want.
That would be great.
Which one should I start with?
Victoria's Secret.
I can start with the site map. Sorry, give me a second.
Sorry, I had just updated my Zoom and it needed to grant me permission.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, please go ahead.
So yes, so we will be working with Victoria's Secret, who is going to be promoting their 15-year anniversary of their #1 fragrance, Bombshell. And it will be in our Airstream trailer, which is represented by this blue rectangular shape, which is roughly to scale size of this vehicle. And then the line will be in the front of the air.
Hang on one second, sweetie.
Sorry?
Sorry, go ahead. I don't know what that was.
Where will the line be, McKenna?
Do you see the green?
Oh, yes. Okay.
So we'll go that way and then wrap around that side of the vehicle. And so we will also have table and chairs set up as well for this moment. And this is really just a moment to engage those consumers and remind them and celebrate that 15-year anniversary of their fragrance, Bombshell.
So it's okay, so it's a 15-year anniversary of a specific fragrance. And can you talk through just the overall, so it's an Airstream with a line, it's a branded Airstream with the line and tables.
So
Yeah.
when you walk in, while people are waiting in line, they'll be receiving a coffee and then in branded cups. And then from there, the first 100 guests will be receiving a little flower bouquet with the fragrance, with the travel size fragrance, and then a newspaper, branded newspaper. They'll walk in, they'll be able to interact with the fragrances, and then they'll walk out, enjoy their coffee on the chairs and at the chairs.
Okay, maybe it'll be helpful if I go to the run of show and then we can come back to this. So give me one
The
second.
rendering is helpful.
The rendering?
Yeah.
Okay. Aha, yes.
Here we go.
Okay. So the seating, it looks like you're putting in sort of branded and colored umbrellas, but that seating is still going to be open to anyone?
Yes, the seating is open to anyone who's in the area. We also know that there will be some additional seating that is already existing in that area still set up.
Okay, and then the line, if we're looking at this photo, it runs off to the north, I guess, yeah. North.
Where that exterior bar is, where the like cafe bar is, that the line will be going along that way, and the guests will that will be their first point of contact for this activation.
Sorry, which way?
The bar, the exterior bar, it's like the stairs and then the bar.
Oh, yeah.
If you scroll left, you can see it.
And wrapped around.
Yeah, okay. Got it, and then it wraps around to the back of that.
Right.
Wait,
Towards the northwest,
tell
kind
me
of.
again, Will?
So right here, that little bar, like right there, where the bar is here.
Yeah.
And then you can see where that is on this screen. And then it goes around that way, yeah. Is there gonna be amplified sound?
There will not be any.
No.
Sorry, I missed that.
She said no.
She said no? Okay. Okay, let me go to just the run of show.
It's not where
Oops,
That's not where the line is in the diagram. though.
I think it
Is that
is.
different?
Yeah, it is.
The line
Sorry,
would be here.
one second.
It would wrap around. They keep saying wrap around. So it would go this way and then where it's at.
Okay,
But not here.
so this is going for 3 days, really, from 9 to 3 each day? Is that right?
Not there, but they don't say
So
it's
6 hours of activation window, and then we will be out.
there.
Sorry, you kind of cut out there, McKenna. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So we will be activating for 6 hours, starting at 3, and the service window starting at 9 a.m. and the window closes at 3 p.m. And then it's a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday.
Got it. And so then the flower bouquets are going to be first 100 guests each day? Okay.
How many people do you expect each day?
We're expecting 400 people, but give or take.
Yeah. Is this being widely promoted on social media or elsewhere?
So they are not really promoting this on social media. However, they're sending out a targeted email a week in advance, and then they will also be having one insider article, but it won't be heavily promoted on their social media. we'll target it.
Got it. Interesting.
And is there any, are you using a generator here, or are you just hooking up to the power at the plaza?
We will be hooking up to power at the plaza.
Okay.
Did you already answer, are there any influencers or appearances? Nothing.
None.
You've been coordinating with the bid on this, meatpacking bid?
Yes, we have,
Okay.
definitely. It's actually the first, I actually make that call before I even file with SAPO to make sure the dates are okay.
Cool. I know you guys always do, but always worth checking. Okay. Do we have any questions? Oh, can you just talk quickly about the security?
Yes, so we will have security on site. We will also have brand ambassadors, and then we will have security overnight as well. All these exterior components will be removed and packed away for the night as it stays out overnight, and there will be a security guard overseeing everything.
So during the day and overnight, there's a guard.
And this is just promoting the fragrance, not Victoria's Secret's other offerings?
Yes, just their fragrance. On the back wall, it says #1 fragrance, so.
Okay. Do you have any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
So much.
Next time, if you could just fill out our thing like your colleagues did, that would be helpful.
I did send that through.
Oh, we didn't get it, but that might be on our end.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not in the drive. Okay. Next, we have Gansevoort Plaza new brand launch, March 27th to 30th, sponsor event Permits LLC. So this is the following weekend.
Gansevoort Plaza is good.
Yes, so can we promote Tommy, please? Hi, Tommy. Tommy, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can now.
That little thing, it's a microphone that I needed to click.
There we go.
How are you?
Yes, good. So yes, please go ahead.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it. So this is a new product launch. It is basically a film shoot, but because we have branding, we supplemented with the SAPO permit. So we're shooting it's a new product. It's PG friendly or then some, family friendly. Not at liberty to discuss, it's confidential, but I'm happy to have a conversation offline with anybody here or with an appointed person to discuss further. I just can't discuss due to our NDA because it's a new launch. So I'm hoping everyone, and I did write to Florence mentioning that to her. Basically it's a still, I sent the site plan over this afternoon. Did you all see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's basically a display in the center of the plaza. It's not very big. Got some, pardon me, I'm so sorry. I've got a bit of a cough. I'm in a car, so that's why I'm not online. We've got some lighting towers to light up the plaza. It's there for 4 days, the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30. And it's just basically for people to see the unveiling or the reveal on the 27th. And then from there, it's just a static display. Nothing being passed out. It's just basically a static display. I don't know what to tell you other than we did ask our client to bring trash cans. I don't know, what we might need them for, but I want to make sure just that we're covering that base. There's nothing really that's being passed out at all. No food, no paper, No, nothing. We will have amplified sound for the duration. It's basically a light show that they're filming at night. So hence the film, but because there's branding on the plaza, there's it required a SAPO permit.
So it's basically an art installation that has lighting elements?
It will, to some extent, yes, but it is a product that's going to be featured on that pedestal that's in that drawing. It's but it's very PG friendly. And again, I'm happy to discuss it offline. I just can't do it in a public forum due to our NDA and legal, because it is it's a film shoot for a new product launch is what it is. But because it got branding, I was required to file a SAPO.
Can you tell us anything more about like the category of product, like food and beverage or electronics or a toy or a piece of content? Like, can you give us directionally, or that's also?
So I'm not really, I could do that. And then please don't ask me any questions after I tell you what the category might be.
Okay, I promise no follow-ups.
So promise no follow-up questions. It's an automotive product, so we'll leave it at that.
I see.
And I think from that point, you have your answers.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing for us is just to try to get a sense of like the impact, right? And like how many people are going to be there, if there's going to be some sort of celebrity, what the sound and noise is like, because we've had stuff like this before, not exactly the same thing, but we've had other instances where actually in the meatpacking area where it was sort of a secret event, and then it ended up being like very, a huge impact, right, on the whole surrounding area. So
right.
I don't know what you can provide, but that's our goal, is to sort of just get a sense of that.
Totally appreciate that, Will. Very much so, and taking that all into consideration. So, with regard to that, on one night, I believe the first night, but they haven't decided, which is the 27th, either the 27th or the 28th, they're going to have a local, I don't even want to say C-list, probably less than that, musical intro to do the reveal. And they have, I've guided them that it can't be more than 15 minutes and it won't go past 8:30. So the latest it would be, the window would be a 15-minute window between either 8:15 and 8:30 at the latest, or at some point after dusk. So everything really is happening. Obviously, the display will be there throughout the day for all days, but the activity is all happening with regard to the lighting after it gets dark, which is after 6 o'clock. Actually, it's more like 6:30 by that time, I think. So,
so really the live activation is only one day for a few minutes, and then it's sort of just a static piece.
It's a static piece with like a light show, for lack of a better way of describing it.
But the light show is all the time?
Like, when does it
Well,
turn
it's
on?
only at night. Yeah, and it's only until they said it's until 8:30. So I'm going to go here and say 9 o'clock, because they took my clients at 8:30. So I'm just extending it a half hour past what we were told. We just got the site plan this afternoon after 3 o'clock. So that's why I sent it to Florence as soon as we got it. It's a month away, so they haven't really formulated all their plans, but they have shared 90% of what is going to happen, which is not much. It's a static display, and with the light show every night, and the unveiling, they intend to have a 15-minute local artist, and that won't be with the sound permit. So it'll all be within the confines of and I put this in the questionnaire as well, everybody, that we will obviously, we take this very seriously. We work closely with the 6th precinct. Actually, my security details led by the former community affairs officer in the 6th precinct, Sonny Stellman. So we're very much staying within the boundaries of the NYPD amplified sound permit or under.
And then that's helpful. So what does the sound look like other than the night with the C-list musical person? Is there sound during the light show other nights? So
yes, and it's background music, Will. And what I mean by that, and we've all been doing this a long time. So I guide my clients that and I put this in the questionnaire as well. And I've been doing this all over the city. While sound travels, obviously, I guide my clients not to play their sound that is intended to go past the footprint. And it's a hard way to describe that because sound travels, but I think everyone here has been doing this long enough to know that what my guidance means to my clients who, sometimes try to, I hear the testing 1, 2, 3, and it's at this loud volume. I tell my clients, why would you want to do a loud test before you even show your event and then have your event, people start complaining before your event even starts? So I really give very good counsel, good guidance to my clients to keep the volume down. Don't do loud tests. It's not necessary. And for anything other than that 15 minutes, all which will still be under the guidance of the NYPD amplified sound permit with decibels. But anything other than that is really just background music intended for the footprint. It's not intended for the restaurant Serafina's across the street. It's, while they may hear it if they're listening for it, they won't hear it if they're not listening for it.
Do you anticipate protesters at this event?
Oh, that's a loaded question in this day and age. I hope not, but
well, if your automotive company is Tesla, I would say that you absolutely need to think about.
No, it wouldn't be anyone that would offend anyone that might be a resident of that plaza.
If it's family friendly, I'm hoping it's Hot Wheels.
If for some reason the music and or the lighting is going on past 9, what can local residents do? Will they be a contact that they can talk to, or?
It won't. There's zero chance that music or lighting will go past. The lighting might go till 10, but certainly the sound won't go past 9. And was told 8:30. So I'm sharing 9 here, but I was told that their hard stop is 8:30 for sound. And again, it's sound to the footprint. I can't imagine. I did something with Dell once, and there were complaints about sound, that I had my security guards with white little notebooks record every single sound they heard, and every time it was a sound, wasn't us. It was back then in the day. It was a forklift. It was a truck. Had nothing to do with our event whatsoever. It had to do with local businesses. So I'm very, very considerate of the local neighborhood. And I take that I have to come eat at your table again and again. My clients come and go, but I don't. So I will always want to be welcome back. So I take extra care. The Times Square Alliance, will tell you that I'm, the sound police when it comes to stuff. They tell me, it's okay, Tom, you can raise the sound higher if you want. So that's how tough I am. I've pulled plugs on my client soundboards. I'm a nice guy, but I don't put up with that nonsense. You have to be considerate of the neighborhood that you're living in at that moment.
Great.
Well, wait, Tommy, I really appreciate everything you're saying, except I believe it's your colleague April. You work with April?
Yes.
She was here last month and promised us the world about this Soho newsstand situation. And it was nothing like she promised. And I went and I asked if April were there or anybody from Event Permits LLC. They didn't even know what that was. There was no one there. It was a total disconnect. She said the line would be cut off past the building line. The line was around 3 blocks in Soho.
Can I ask what
I
the
hear
Soho
what you're saying, but it's that was a whole situation.
Can you tell me about the Soho newsstand? I own the company, and I'm not. Maybe it's just described differently.
It was the Laura Mercier event at a newsstand on Prince and Mercer.
It's Soho News International. Yeah, they do a lot.
Sullivan and Thompson.
You probably know they do. A lot of wraps
I know which one you're.
Yeah,
I know which one you're talking. It was at that corner with
Yes, and April, we said all the things because this isn't our first rodeo at that location, and we said you don't have 5 feet. This isn't going to work, and she promised us up and down it would be great. not only was it far from great, no one from your team was on site. There was no contact. I had to go and like figure out who the Laura Mercier people were. They knew none of the rules. They knew none of the things that April had promised us. So I love what you're saying, but it just happened with your company last month. That was the exact opposite experience.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate that. I will tell you, it's not your problem, my problem. But very difficult client. We told them what we wanted them to do with regard to security. And at the last minute, they bailed on everything. And it puts us, as you can imagine, we try to be good stewards for every community we work in, not just yours. And sometimes you have clients that just are, and frankly, if they were here, I would say the same thing I'm saying right now. It's very unfair. Sometimes people think you just pay for a piece of paper, and we try and do a lot more than make it just a piece of paper, but that's what some people unfortunately regard it as. And they did not take any of our guidance with regard to security. They cut us back. They want to use one security guard a night. We think that's very unsafe. We always do 2 security guards a night, always. In today's world, we do. And I apologize. I'm sorry about that. I actually do know which event you're talking about now. And the other thing you said during the preliminary meeting, because I sat in on that, and if you recall, you said, by the way, this location is a bit of a problem. So evidently you had that situation there before. We guided our client accordingly. We said, listen, by the way, we just sat through a community board meeting, and we were told that, have you ever activated here before? They said, no. I said, well, you're not going to be the first, because the community board had said that this area is a problem area. So we really do take this seriously. I want you to know that. But sometimes people just are just less than ingenuous about what they do. It was not us. I realize that my name's on the permit. I'm ultimately responsible. I understand that, and I do not shirk that responsibility lightly, but it was something that really was beyond our control. And we have a CRM, which I don't know if you know what that is, but if you do, and we tag our clients, and this client was tagged as a PETA client. Pain in the ass. And I know that doesn't help this conversation, but I don't want you to think that we shirk our responsibility. That's not the case at all. We take it very seriously, and that ticked us off. And now hearing what you're telling us, even more so. So I don't know.
And I appreciate that, but I don't understand why then, if you guys are the permit holder, someone from your team wasn't at the event. Like, why is it me that's going and saying, wait, why is your line here? You didn't say this. Why is this da-da-da? Like, you told us something else. Like, I work in client services too, so I can appreciate that.
I have an answer.
Like, someone from your team should be there.
I have an answer
for what you said to us. Yeah.
Because the answer is very simple. This client was very difficult to work with. We gave them guidance. We told them we wanted to have someone on site. They were not willing to pay for it. Time is money. The permits for these events are $3,100 a day, and that rate is published online. And people, unfortunately, think that a permit is $3,100, and it's not. There's more that goes into it. And we, unfortunately, are faced with, as a business, we're faced with the fact that everything is online, and people say, I know that permit's $3,100. And they don't want to pay for sometimes us being there, which we would like to be there, but I can't just, time is money. And
that's actually, I mean, this is actually really informative. I mean, maybe something we need to think about doing in the future is for very problematic areas and sites that we know are issues, we need to have actually the end client, not only the expediter, talk to us.
We heard that. I wasn't on the meeting last month, Will, but I did hear Dawn present it. And actually, Dawn and I have had even though I wasn't at the meeting, attending this meeting last month, I did talk to Dawn. I said, I heard you present it. And I heard that one of the things that you spoke with CB2 about was having someone on site from the people that file the permits. Yeah. And I said, I need to let you know, Dawn, that's a great idea in practice, but there's a cost that's associated with that, and not all clients want to pay that. They did not want to use our security team company because we wanted 2 security guards at night. I am not putting any of my security guards out there at night with just one person in today's world. It's not safe. And so do what we try to do despite that. And we love working in CB2. We try to be very respectful from CB2. I try to anticipate all Pete's questions before he asks them. But I say that with all due respect, because I think these are key learnings. You know, I think that it's, you guys are the most buttoned up group that we have to talk to, and we learn a lot from you all, and we've modified how we work with our clients as a result thereof, and I think that's a good thing.
So I guess let me ask, do you anticipate any similar problems with the client for this particular client, or do you get the sense that this one is a bit easier to work with?
Will, on this one, they are a great client of ours. We actually did the Empire State Building with the dragon on the top. They are a wonderful client. They have great ideas. They execute wonderfully, and they are paying for us to have someone there during most of the times that they're in the evening that they're active. So I will have someone on site.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah.
So listening to what you and Erica just said, going forward, will you be working with the company we were just discussing again, or are you done with them?
I can tell you unequivocally, thanks, but no thanks. We're done. Not every client is a good client. It's, you know, if they don't play by the rules, I really can't attach my name to them. So the answer is not without hesitation. Thanks, but no thanks. We'll pass.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Anyone else here have anything?
Let's see. Oh, he did.
Yeah, we can. I just want to see if anyone else had anything in the room.
No, but I think given the history, if there's some kind of contact from your team that we have or our office has or something, I mean, I'm trying to like empathize, but we have no recourse against Laura Mercier, right? You guys are the permit holders. So I think it would help if there is a delta in what you guys tell us here and what the community experiences, a way for us to not have to like navigate that and contact you guys directly. Because it sort of puts the burden on us to figure that out, you know? And ultimately you guys will be the ones to get punished when maybe you shouldn't be, but I think a contact would help.
I wasn't even aware what you were speaking to when you first brought it up. And then as you explained it to me, then I realized which one this was. I actually sat in on the initial meeting, which was 2 months ago, on that one. And
it was in
Last month, I
February.
think.
We didn't have a meeting in January.
but I was actually, you know, I actually did the presentation for that meeting. I remember doing that, but I didn't remember what it was initially when you said it. I know April was part of the meeting as well, but I know I was explaining that intersection, that street corner, I should say. We did not know at the time it was a problem. And by the way, once you all brought up the fact on the CB2 meeting that this was a problem location, we marked that down in our CRM as well. And so we would be less likely, if not totally opposed to actually acting at that location, because we know we know it's a problem location. So that's also a key learning that we take away from these meetings. Again, I'm not trying to say that I have an answer for you as to what happened, other than I appreciate the feedback. I did not know that they did that, because unless you had told me, I would not have known. And so thank you. But we won't be activating with that client again. And that decision was made before this meeting right now.
Okay. Well, it's good to know that you'll be on site for this one, so we can reach out to you directly and talk to your person on site directly if we need to.
And yes, I will have someone on site, but also
Will you be able to send us their contact, whoever's going to be on site, or?
Yes, we just got the site plan today, so we'll be having a conversation this week as far as our own internal staffing, but the client is taking care of that with us. And also, I invite everyone to please always have my phone number. My cell phone is always on, and unless I'm on an airplane, you can use my number because I can reach anyone in my company.
And can you
Can you
share
send that
that
to
with
us?
someone?
Yeah, I can, I can send it through to Florence, or I can give it to y'all right now if you'd like.
Sure. Right
Sure.
down.
201-679-6080.
Great. That's very helpful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy.
Yes, my pleasure.
Anybody else in the room? Pete also has his hand raised. We good? Okay.
Just a little.
Yeah, okay, go, Pete, go ahead.
Hi, Pete.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Pete Davies. I live in Soho near this location, the location that we were talking about, not the Gansevoort. I just find this whole excuse to be really troubling. This gentleman basically said, well, they were trouble, the client, but they weren't going to pay for what was required. So we walked away. We didn't stay where we
I
said.
didn't say that, Pete. I didn't say that.
Excuse me, sir. You did say there was nobody on, there was none of your people there. Your people were supposed to be there, and you're only hearing about it apparently right now.
Correct.
It happened, sir, I'm talking to the committee. Thank you very much. It apparently, nobody got the word back to the boss that this thing was a fiasco. So I don't, we have talked for months about marking down bad actors so SAPO can deal with it. And so we know what we're getting into when they come to us. I think this organization should be put in the category of bad actor. And we should deal with that accordingly as they come to us. Thank you very much.
May I respond to that, please?
Yeah, sure.
So I hear what Pete's saying, and I empathize with what Pete's saying. I genuinely do. Those are not just words. I really do empathize with what Pete's saying. I disagree that we're a bad actor. I actually feel we are an excellent actor. We've been doing this for many, many years, and more so than many companies. And we really do take great consideration with regard to the communities we're activating in. It means something to us. I do take very seriously by my choice of words when I say I have to come back and eat at your table again and again. So we really do look after the local community. And I actually disagree with Pete totally on that. We are very considerate of the community, but we sometimes can't control all of the external forces. And if our client chooses not to take our advice, then that's not good. But we have our recourse, and that's to not do business with them again. You can choose not to do business with us. That's your prerogative. But I have to tell you, I think of all the companies that might activate, we really do take great consideration with local CB2 and with all the communities we activate in. It means something to us.
Okay.
Should we move on?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I don't see any more hands raised. So we're going to move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. We are now at April 9th, 10th. Oh, this is you as well.
No, what about?
Oh, sorry. I can't read.
We do have another one coming up, the next one down.
Okay, so that's coming up next. So let's go to Moncler, Prince between Greene and Mercer. We have someone here from Moncler. Francesco.
Hello, do you see me? Okay.
Yes. Hi.
How are you? I also have my colleague Francesco. I'm Nicholas Kohana from the Moncler brand. If you could also let him in, and I really appreciate that. But I'll just quickly review our application. So I represent the brand, work there. We are launching our collection with Mercedes-Benz and a creative director named Nigo on the 4th. To note, we revised the dates. So outside of our store on 99 Prince Street, across the street, we would park a G-Wagon, a very limited edition concept car that we created with them. And in front of the store on 99 Prince Street, we would operate a small matcha cart with a rope extending down the street as we normally do when we have an overflow of customers. Starting at setup and start on the 4th of April and break down on the 6th of April that evening. We will have 2 ambassadors at least on site operating the cart, along with representatives from the brand at all times, and 24-hour security at the height, with at least 5 outside and another 4 inside, which we usually operate because of the value of our merchandise. We will have garbage cans and a cleaning service to ensure that everything is properly, all garbage and is properly handled. And we expect probably no more than 100 people per day, if that. And I know you received some of our materials, obviously a little bit rough, but we have a licensed architect who is now working on the more professional versions of our application for city approval and hopefully your pre-approval.
Thank you. I'm just looking in our drive. Did you send across a diagram or no?
Yes. I can pull it up if preferred or easy.
I don't see it in our drive, sorry. Yeah, if it's possible to just pull up the diagram or site plan, that would be great.
Yeah. Here. Okay, so are you seeing this?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. So the building is our store 99 Prince. The cart would be alongside it. And please mind that the rope line would be in the section not on the pedestrian walkway. It's very straightforward activation. Opposite the street, because as you probably know, the curb lane right next to it is for fire trucks and bicycles. So we would park the car across the street with a rope around it and security 24 hours a day.
Sorry, is the rope line against the build? Like, that's confusing.
It's against the building. Apologies for the
Okay.
not great mock-up.
So the 5-foot walkway is just
Where the sidewalk label is should be where the rope line is.
so the 5-foot pedestrian walkway is actually just from the curb to kind of where the front of the cart and the line is.
Correct.
Okay.
Wait, so it's not a walkway?
The walkway is just where you think
Rope line is actually
It's labeled in the
Yeah,
wrong
it's
on the
spot.
north side of the
Sorry,
dock.
this
Yeah.
is Francesco. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Below the red line.
Hi. Yes, so this is just a draft. So where you
Yeah.
see the 5-foot pedestrian walkway in red, actually the clearance is gonna be on the other side of the rope line through the curb lane.
Yeah.
So is the cart on the kind of, is it going to be sitting on the metal graded area? Like the metal, there's like the concrete sidewalk and then the metal and then the steps, right?
On above the vault, yes.
Yes, okay. The vault, yeah. And you said you normally have some kind of line out there for overflow and it's going to just look like that?
Correct.
Is there going to be any amplified sound?
No.
Okay. And it's open, what are the hours that it's going to be there each day?
11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Store operating hours.
And is there any kind of special promotion being done?
No, it's more word of mouth.
Okay. And this is just for it's specifically being done for a collaboration with Mercedes, is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
And if the line goes to Mercer, are you gonna wrap it around Mercer, I guess?
I think we'll control for that. Francesco may have a little more
Yeah, I
insight.
mean, yeah, we will go in that direction, but we don't anticipate the line to get to the corner of the Mercer.
So would you cut it off if it started getting too long or what?
Yes, we would control for that. And we have security, multiple security, because obviously the value of the car, our merchandise and our brand. So we'll be controlling all elements pretty tightly.
Are you encouraging or expecting folks to want to take photos with the car? Or is there gonna be like people on that side of the street facilitating that?
There's no prompt, but we expect people to take some pictures. We don't expect, as Francesco said, a huge amount of people to come up. It'll be more of just sort of the regular flow of Soho on a normal weekend.
Nicholas, sorry, what's your last name?
Kohana, Kohana.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that side of this, are you gonna be moving the car each night? Because I think there's a no parking after 6 p.m. I'm just reading the signs right.
We're happy to do that if necessary, but it would be preferable to just keep the car there with the security watching the car 24 hours, but whatever you prefer.
It's not what we prefer, we just don't want you to get towed.
Yeah,
That's
just what the sign reads, so.
The city representative said that if you put the permit underneath the windshield and have security there as a representative to tell any police that you should be good to park it through the night.
Okay.
How much is the car?
Commercially, this concept car is not for sale.
But it's not much, huh?
If it were for sale, how much would it be?
Not for sale. That's how much. Yeah. So it's obviously yeah.
The cheapest G-Wagon's probably like what, 150K? Something like that.
I can't put a cutter in, huh? Thank you.
What is the red dotted line? I think that's meant to delineate the pedestrian walkway, right? Is the dash line?
That is just the line from the template, because we did this in home. We will have a professional now developing the final layout.
Yeah, so I think what you were saying is where it says rope line, that's actually going to be above that red dotted line.
Correct. Yeah.
And the walkway is on the other side.
Is on the other side of the dotted line.
We got it.
Words are in the wrong place.
Exactly. Yes.
I think just understand how busy this area is on the weekends and that 5 feet really needs to be protected, please.
We will.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. Pete, go ahead. You want to unmute?
Was he asking about the?
He was asking about
Hand
the
is
dotted
raised.
line.
I don't know if this is a question.
I'll lower it.
Go ahead.
I think in the chat.
Pete, go ahead if you have another question.
Yeah, I'm just going to put the Google Street View in the chat, a link, because in front of Moncler, there is massive stoop up against the building, stairways that just don't make it possible for a clear walkway within 5 feet of the building. Half of the sidewalk is taken over by these very large steel staircases. And
The walkway is the cement portion, I think, is what they were saying, not the vaulted area.
But
correct.
Okay.
So are you gonna go like between the staircases?
I'm just saying you need 5 pedestrian clear walkway.
Yeah, I think they said that the design on this is wrong, and so Looking at it, I think I see where the cart would go.
Yeah, would the car go between the staircases on top of the vault against the brick sort of part of the wall there?
Correct. We would not extend past the vault.
Vaults are under the sidewalk.
Well, the metal grating, whatever I don't know the right word for it.
Right.
Yeah, stoops. Okay. I just think it's going to be a very congested, complicated thing if you're putting a rope line on that narrow sidewalk with those things in the stoops there. Also, you should know that recently a vehicle was part of a SAPO installation on Broadway. They left it overnight on Broadway with a guard there. And somehow, unbeknownst to him, a crew showed up and graffitied the entire vehicle.
What? How did the guard that out?
Which one was that?
Oh, it was, some makeup thing, some South Korean makeup company. But they had to spend the SAPO group that was pushing their product had to spend all morning trying to get paint off their vehicle. So I'm not sure that leaving you can do whatever you want, but that's a block away from where you're going to be here. So
thank you, Mr. Davis, for the recommendation. We'll take this into account. We'll discuss internally, but it's certainly a useful feedback. Thank you.
Good luck.
If you guys can aim to leave that sidewalk clear, that would be amazing. Just stay on top of the metal thing if that's possible.
Yes.
Clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just so we're clear, the paperwork said 3 weeks, 2 weekends. Now we're down to 1 weekend and it's in April and no longer in March, correct?
I sent the revised schedule to Florence. So the start date is 4/4, April 4th, and the end date is the evening of 4/6.
Okay, thank you.
And you updated the SAPO application?
Correct.
Okay. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nicholas and Francesca, thank you. Okay. We are back to makeup truck, Broadway between Prince and Spring. So is that you again, Tommy?
It is me again, Will. Yes, it is.
Welcome
This is
back.
similar to thank you. This is similar to the first presentation by New York Food Truck Association for Fever Trades. It's actually an event for Sephora. We applied to be in front of Sephora, and SAPO told us that we could not be there because it's embargoed. So they asked us to move a block north, which is the location that the first presentation was at, which is Broadway between Prince and Houston. My client, which is Sephora, was not thrilled about that. So I did have a conversation with Shanique on Friday afternoon, and Shanique and I had a great chat, and she said, Tommy, I know that it's an event for Sephora. They want to be in front of their store. This location's been embargoed for a long time, and it would be appreciated if you don't appeal this and just find a way to get your client to take our advice and just move it between Broadway between Prince and Houston. So I am not asked. I put on my form actually that I was going to ask y'all to make a special consideration because it's a Sephora event in front of Sephora, but Shanique has asked that we not do that, and I agree with her. It's just going to create them historic problems if someone else comes along and asks for that location. So this is basically an ice cream truck that was going to park in the end of the street closest to the Sephora store, which is a block south. I did hear Pete earlier say that he would prefer if it be not at that corner. I heard the reasons why. I totally get that. Makes sense to me. So based on the first presentation we heard, tomorrow morning, we're going to tell our client that we prefer if they be closer to Prada or north of Prada, if that is agreeable to CB2, based on what Pete had said earlier on the first presentation. It's 6-ounce samples. We are going to have 2 Rubbermaid Brute trash cans with black bags that the client, we've advised them to empty and take away the trash in their truck each night. The truck does go away at night, doesn't stay. It's a 2-day event, April 9th and April 10th. And the queuing line for the truck, they're giving away samples and of 6-ounce samples of ice cream with mini makeup. So it just depends on who Sephora has as their, who they can get to donate the little mini makeup kits, whatever they are, whether it's a lipstick or an eyeliner or something else. I don't know, but they're little mini makeups plus an ice cream sample. And the brand ambassadors are going to be encouraging the customers to walk down the block to the Sephora store, which is not too far away. It's across the intersection. And the queuing line will go north on the west side of the block on the curb line. So it won't interfere with pedestrian right away. It won't interfere with any of the stores or shops. And it's a very long block. So we'll be queuing against that curb line.
So it's like almost a carbon copy of the first event now. It's basically 575 Broadway, but maybe a little bit north of that. So maybe not that exact address.
That's correct. Yes, Will.
Okay.
And I appreciate you listening to the first event. I think even more important than where the actual truck is, that the line queues north. Because if there's a long line, it goes into the subway, it gets bad. So I think the bigger priority is a north way flowing line.
And that was the plan, but we're just going to push it a little further north based on what Pete said earlier tonight.
Great.
And no amplified sound?
They're going to have sound at the truck. I am going to pull a permit because that's what the law states, but the sound is not speakers on the outside of the truck. It's just basically something inside the truck, very low volume. Again, I guide my clients. We're not playing to the neighborhood. We're just playing for your footprint.
I'm sorry, can you remind me of the hours during the day of the activation?
It's supposed to be 10 to 4 every single day for the 2 days.
They're both weekdays, yeah? 8th and 9th?
I believe so.
9th and 10th.
Oh, 9th and 10th. Okay.
How, are you gonna have like the back of the truck is like a step and repeat, so you're having people go into the curb lane to take the photos?
The actual, there's a backdrop that's on the back of the truck. So if people do want to take a picture, they can. We don't see there being a big demand for that, but that's what the client wanted. So it's going to be on the side of it's going to be on the back of the truck.
You have like barriers or something? I mean, Broadway's like pretty trafficy for people to be stepping into the street to take photos.
Yeah, I'm not encouraging that. That's a conversation that's still well over a month away, and I don't envision that actually coming to play that way. That's what the client was looking for, a backdrop, and that's what they suggested. We don't think that backdrop, the design of the truck, hasn't even been printed yet. So,
but if they had that, you would put hard barriers there, right?
Will, the answer to that question is yes, but I don't even see that happening. I don't think it's safe, and you're welcome to say that you strongly suggest against it, and I will be in full support of that.
I think it's fine if you have barriers, but if you don't have barriers, definitely not fine.
Yeah.
So it's just a contingency.
It's probably better if you don't, because it just adds more congestion.
Could not agree more, Will. So I would actually be off the record saying I hope you tell SAPO that you recommend against it. Wouldn't hurt my feelings in the least.
Okay. And is this in conjunction with a new product release? Is there? You said there's going to be social media. Well, you know what the promotion of it looks like. What kind of product is it?
I think Sephora is just looking for an excuse to drive traffic to foot traffic to their store, which is why they want to be in front of their store. But I heard Shanique loud and clear, and I agree with her.
So it's not a particular product launch.
No, sir.
Okay.
Do you know what the samples are?
It's ice cream, and most of it is going to be L'Oreal is the primary. I guess I don't want to use the word sponsor, but for lack of a better term, sponsor. So it's they're going to have different L'Oreal samples. I don't know what other samples they may or may not have, but they did get L'Oreal to pony up for different types of mini makeup samples for handout.
Yeah. Okay, Pete?
Yeah, Pete Davies again, Broadway Residents Coalition. This is just concerned about the music. It was said that the music would be played from inside the truck, but people are not entering the truck. So the music must be heard outside the truck. Is that correct?
Yes, of course. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be broadcast to the entire neighborhood either.
And so what level are you thinking would be advisable to tell your client would be the maximum should be played?
So we've advised them that first, the sound permit that NYPD advances does not allow for a very loud, it's 20 feet from the source, and that's not the intention, is to create a circus here. It's just basically play the music so that there's something ambient going on in the background. That's the intention. So the permit says, I think 80 decibels, 20 feet from the source, and it will not exceed that. I don't think it'll get anything close to that, but that's what the permit says.
Okay, just so everybody's aware, the ambient sound on Broadway at Prince is pretty hectic as it is. So to get music that puts a dent into that, you're amping it up to that level. So that's why we always we never give allowance for live music. I mean, for amplified music for SAPO events on Broadway, as far as I know. Thanks.
Tommy, will someone from your team be on site, like kind of same as last time, to like enforce all these things we're discussing? Make sure
I can. I'm sorry, my apologies. Go ahead.
Okay, just to make sure it's compliant with like the promises that we would be giving this permit on.
So what we do typically is we have our security team is our representative. And so we do have someone there that is, without having to double bill the client for a personnel plus the security, we have our security team as our eyes and ears. And this client has already engaged us for that. So we're very happy about that. They're a repeat customer. They are a great customer of ours, unlike the one that we unfortunately had to discuss earlier.
Okay, so someone from your team as a security person will be there too for continuity based on this discussion.
That is absolutely 100% correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
And I'll take this one more opportunity to say, sorry I had to hear now about what happened at that other intersection. It does bother me, and it's not the way we like to leave an event. So I apologize again.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
All right. We're going to move on. Do we have someone from Lily's Vegan Pantry?
I love this place. It's so cute.
Lily, are we 100% sure that notifications went out to the last two? They did?
My understanding is yes, but I was the one to do it.
Do we have anyone from Parsons? No. No one from Lewis or Parsons.
It's easy.
All right. Yeah.
FYI renewals, 1 through 21.
Oh, well, we'll do that at the end. We'll do that at the end.
Oh, the triangle shirtwaist fire.
Yeah, that's,
Again?
Every year, it's annual.
yeah.
Teacher commemoration.
Okay. Let's go into business session. So Fever Tree at Broadway.
Seems fine.
Standard,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, standard cart. That's fine. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed, abstain, or recuse? Okay, and we'll note moving it a bit north, right?
Towards Houston.
Not towards east. I was cringing.
Deny unless they start calling you House Street.
Okay,
Move north in front of and other stories.
Yeah, yeah. They're not the first one to come before our committee and call it Houston. Okay, Victoria's Secret.
Mhm.
Yes, it's fine. They're keeping.
I know
As far
people
as-
who
as
want to
far
go
as
to that.
Plaza events go, it seems pretty reasonable. They don't need a generator.
Very, very fun, very
Yeah.
kosher.
Does anyone have an issue with this one? No, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same accused. Okay. All right, new product launch. It's kind of hard to opine on something we don't know exactly what it is.
Mhm.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting that there, what he was saying is that a client isn't required to have anybody who they hired to run the event be on site, pay for that person, right? Is that something we should recommend to SAPO have this, no, but I mean,
Yeah.
that should be written into some kind of regulations or something, that when you get this permit, you must have at least hire one member of the
I mean,
permit holder.
it seems kind of pointless to have a system where we have people come and present. And we're not required to have any true connectivity through to the person who's actually throwing the event.
Right, so does that become a resolution we work on for another meeting to say we think that SAPO should change the regulations so that anyone who is doing an event on someone else's permit must hire someone from the permit holder to attend the event or something? I don't know how you would
It
phrase
doesn't
it.
have to be hired, it's just.
Someone from the permit holder has to be physically represented at the site.
Yeah.
But what he's saying though, is that they think all they're paying for is the permit.
Well, that's on him,
Yeah.
Like, I think eventually, like, I'm for that, I love that, but like,
Yeah.
eventually, if he's not there, he doesn't sell it to his clients, then we're not gonna give him the permit and they're out of business, so he has to sell it.
It's kind of
right?
crazy that it's like a separate, you have to pay for a separate service to have them on site. And okay.
Well, that could be a SAPO regulation,
I mean,
that
the fact
whoever the client is
Yeah.
must pay to have a member of the permit holder.
Or not to.
What if
it's just
we-
that one way or another.
What if instead of a resolution, we wrote a letter to SAPO saying this is something we've observed and learned and or bringing to their attention a potentially systemic issue with the permit holders not being physically represented and then no one being accountable to the commitments they made
Didn't we brought this up?
We brought it up when last month.
in a letter?
No,
She
when she
said-
presented.
She said,
That wasn't.
we said people on the ground don't know anything about the agreement, they're expediters. And she said, contact SAPO, whoever put in the application is responsible for onsite. Call SAPO or email Chris or Shanique, pictures, et cetera, and get their contact.
I think that's good for the one-off, but I think we could point to this as something that they should think about problem solving on an ongoing basis rather than
Right.
us having to just bring it to their attention.
So is this a resolution we write, not for this week, but for another week? I don't know.
We have a line into SAPO. We should just tell them again
Yeah.
that we're encountering
Okay,
this problem again.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
And no, we can include it in this resolution for whatever we say for this one. We can have it as a, therefore be it resolved.
I just feel like they're not gonna notice something that no.
Well, I think we can note it here and then also.
Yeah, just flag
mention
it.
to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you guys want to do on this?
I mean, it's, other than the fact that it's so secret, it does nothing about it. Otherwise,
I don't like the secrecy. I understand, I guess, why they have to do it.
Well, if it wasn't a public meeting, he could tell us it sounded like. He could whisper it if he was here, physically.
is this the first, this can't be the first time there's been a SAPO request for something that was
Yeah, there was
not
the
yet.
white party, and then that was really disruptive, and no one knew about it.
But that was because the event itself was designed to be disruptive. Like, is there a precedent of just like an embargoed product announcement? Where it's a normal event, but
I can't think of that many precedents, to be honest.
yeah, it's odd.
I mean, when I had clients, we would, I never worked, I wasn't on the event team, so I never worked with people pulling the thing, but we would embargo, we wouldn't announce what was being promoted.
I also think there's a lot of room for error in Gansevoort in terms of space to corral and hold in possible issues from a popular event compared to other locations that we commonly see.
Well, I mean, he said other than the first 15 minutes, there's no live activation other than it's basically, but I also don't like that it's.
Like a light show.
And I don't like that it's kind of,
till 10 p.m.
it's basically gonna be just like a billboard, which I don't love.
Can we say something like, we don't have enough information to pass judgment either way? Like, we are not approving it, we're not denying it.
I mean, I
we're like,
would consider that, because like, I don't like the precedent of approving something where we
Yeah.
don't know what it is. And also, I don't like the precedent of approving like essentially a billboard, which is after the first 15 minutes, it seems like that's what it is. It's a light-filled billboard.
yeah,
I don't know.
I would, if that's a menu option we have, I think that's what we should do. Like, not.
Or I would say we could deny unless we get more information before the full board, and then we could modify it.
What would change your mind if it was, Ford, and Ford is launching a new car with a light show? Like, does it matter if it's Ford or BMW?
I feel like if we could get
Or Hot
more
Wheels.
detail about like what is
What the lights
billboard,
look
like
like, yeah, 'cause
how
it's
obtrusive
like
is
a lot
it?
of-
What does it look like?
Exactly, the design of it.
Even if it were like product name here, like they don't have to tell us.
Like if it's, yeah.
I feel like we didn't talk a lot about, we didn't ask them a lot of questions about what the light show was gonna look like.
So I don't think you could tell
I
us.
also think it's helpful to know what
Promise we will.
brand it is so that we can independently gauge the.
Is he still one of the panelists?
No.
Do you want to ask him about the light? Well, I can't see the panelists.
No, you left.
Okay, so we can't ask him about the light show.
Like, I'm pretty sure the rules for pedestrian plazas basically say you're not supposed to use it for basically pure
Okay.
advertising. And like,
Which it might not be.
Would it say
Oh.
if it's just a lit.
We said it was a video shoot, a movie shoot, or
Yeah,
TV shoot or
But
whatever.
there's gonna be some installation that's there for 4 nights with some sort of light show and music.
It's only a shoot because they're filming the activation.
Oh, okay.
It's not like actually a shoot. They're doing like a time lapse of the whole thing,
It was a real shoot.
which makes me
It's
feel
gonna
like
be a TV commercial
they want
for
people
whoever.
I don't love it.
Should we just?
I don't love them.
Should we just do a deny, unless we receive more information that allows us to make a more fulsome decision? And then.
Because it sounds like it's
That's what
more,
Rosie
it's a
is for.
pure
I
S.
see Rosie.
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
So, and also because you're worried that it's.
Yeah.
I think more about the
An
precedent,
advertising rather
concern
than
with this
event.
specific event. We can't make determinations with relevant information embargoed from us.
Yeah, I agree.
Too many unknowns, so therefore we can't determine.
Yes, you okay?
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that.
You can vote against that.
I think I might abstain, but like, I understand why we need a process that allows that. I also think that SAPO can make good decisions here, and us as an advisory committee can say no, and they can say, okay, we understand.
And they will.
Yeah.
They will, the event will
This
still happen.
allows us, this is a way to raise kind of just like, look, we can't do any more of those.
Yeah, I understand.
So everyone's deny, Eddie's abstain. And we're just noting that we can't make decisions.
Yeah, and we're also noting,
Without all the
we're also
relevant
noting
info.
all the other issues that we discussed here.
And we want to note that SAPO permit holders are not always on site, and this is an ongoing problem.
I think it's important to say why they're not on site.
I'll try to rate a good reso that everyone knows.
It's just a sentence.
You always say.
You do a great job. It's only one sentence saying
Yeah.
it wasn't on site because they refused to actually hire the staff.
Yeah.
Once the permit.
Also, permit expiring shouldn't exist because we should just have good processes.
Yes.
that Don't require them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I get from the idea of the person who's doing it, they just don't want to deal with it.
All right.
But they can be like a person from the production team.
Yeah,
has to
like
come to the
Moncler,
meeting.
they showed up.
That's what they do in liquor
Moncler showed up,
license.
yeah, they were able to show up directly.
Speaking of.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with this one.
Yes, me too.
Because, I mean, this one, I see a clear 5-foot pedestrian walkway,
Yes.
unlike the Soho News one where there really was not one.
Yeah.
Does anyone have an issue with this one?
No, I trust them at their word that the city said they're not going to tow their car. That does feel like
I think we gave them
Talk to the other.
useful feedback or pieces for that. They might want to.
Yeah.
So otherwise, yeah, fine. If they keep it on the metal, good. Also, we should have people take down their diagrams if they're obviously wrong, so they don't mislead us while we're thinking about that.
Should we put in the resolution that we recommend they not leave the car overnight? Or it's.
I don't
they
really care.
Okay.
They heard this story.
Yeah, it's up to them.
They're big.
Yeah, that was a terrible diagram. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain or accuse, deny, oppose? Okay, where are we? Sorry.
Pickup truck.
Yeah. I think despite the issues we discussed with this applicant on the other one, I think this one's fine,
Agreed.
unless anyone disagrees.
Fine.
No, one thing I almost said is they're giving away free ice cream across the street from the Museum of Ice Cream, which is
Oh, really?
kind of funny.
Yeah.
Is that still?
They'll also drive traffic to the museum. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I've been there with our.
Just kidding, I love all of our small businesses. And
Have you gone to that inside? It's different.
not in San Francisco.
Do we have
When I
anything
went
to
San
discuss
Francisco,
vis-a-vis the presentation?
Well, let's just vote on this one. All right, so are we all in favor of this one?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain,
I
recuse?
think I have to recuse.
Okay, yeah. For,
L'Oreal's my client. 4 is not so sketchy, but I should just. do it.
I hate I guess we have to deny the other two. I just want to I'll confirm with Florence that they actually got the invite. I don't like denying Parsons because that one seems really interesting, but.
And Lily's Vegan Pantry.
Can
is
we
like
lay them
a
over
Chinatown, like, we've been
unilaterally?
there forever.
No, we could for
Develops
For
will
April.
appreciate the.
Yeah.
It's not till
Let's just do it.
5/17. And is that a public thing or just for
We usually
students?
deny for no shows.
Yeah. but
Yeah,
it just feels-
I also think SAPO doesn't care if we deny for no shows, so.
But if we don't want to deny because we feel like they didn't have enough notice, can't we just say we are going to invite them back next month?
Yeah, these are both in May, we have plenty of time.
Yeah.
Like,
I think we could deny and then, well,
Deny less.
do we not have the power to lay over our own hearings,
We should.
our own items?
why don't we deny unless they are able to show next week? Because I don't want to change the precedent of denying.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can say deny unless
They present next month.
comment next month's meeting and present.
Yeah, I think that should just be our standard.
If, however, they did not get invitations, I don't think.
No, then we'll change that.
Yeah, okay.
You all okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think it still does benefit the community if they can hear these events, because.
I think, no, I definitely.
Because if it's a
I
deny,
agree.
sometimes we know that SAPO doesn't deny it, so we want to give every opportunity for people to hear and express. what-
Totally, yeah.
Cool. Okay, how about FYIs, there's a lot.
There's a lot of them. I see a bunch of the Pride related ones in here.
Yeah.
And just speaking stream of consciousness, I think would be interesting to hear from them on like how they think about planning this. I imagine they're going to be very busy the next few months planning one of the largest events in New York, but not even to like approve or deny them, just to understand how a major event that impacts our community works. That'd be
What-
interesting.
Like the parade? What do you, I'm confused.
There's like
There's a Pride on Astor Fair. Remember
there's Pride Fest,
Pride Fest,
25,
Stage
Stage Fest,
Fest.
Pride Fest. I don't know what the official Pride
Stonewall.
Parade one is.
The Pride Parade one we don't get.
We don't get parade.
I think we should just approve this.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm just saying, I think it's interesting that
It would be interesting, but I don't think we need to create more.
Well, we can approve and
it
then.
has nothing to do with the approval or
We
not.
can
of the-
approve and then
of
we
the
can
FYI
still,
renewals. Just a-
we can
just a
still
thought.
ask someone to, if we feel like there's a month where we have some opening, we can just hear about it, we can think about that. But that doesn't have, that doesn't change the vote, right?
No, it has nothing to do with the vote.
No, I'm thinking more about like, if we want to
Yeah.
impose upon the planners,
I don't think
With
we
an
can vote, but I think
invitation.
We can ask, yeah.
but
All right,
we're hard to say no to.
all right, so should we vote? Well, anything else?
No.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recused? Okay. Anyone want to talk about I thought the first presentation was great. I'm glad that we're establishing contact with
Yeah.
the SWAB.
Are we just writing up a report of what?
Yeah,
Stuff?
write a report.
And
Charismatic eye.
will there be a link in our resolution
To the slides?
to the slides?
I think, sure, yeah, we can link to them, Mark, if we can do that, yeah.
Are you gonna present about it at the meeting? Because you could encourage people to go to the slides, and if they have any ideas, they're looking for
Yeah.
communications ideas, neighborhood partnerships, et cetera, because everybody on the board
Yeah.
knows people.
I asked Eric, I'll follow up with him if he could just also come to our public session if he really wants to. That'd be great.
Okay.
And he could do a 2-minute spiel, and I know DSNY also is gonna come to our
They
public
told us
session
that.
and give an update.
Okay, yeah.
Should we put in the next CB2 email a link to the application to join? Because that deadline is before the next full board meeting.
Oh, to join
I think
SWAB?
so.
Yeah,
Mark, do you
is that the kind of
I
thing?
think Susan would, yeah, maybe I
But that
can,
feels,
Maybe we'll do both. Maybe we'll put it in the last, the link to the slides.
yeah,
I think I
And
get
then
that.
an invitation to join.
Yeah.
And the information.
yeah, it's good to get that out there. 'Cause
Yeah,
people might be
people don't.
interested in that. It's an interesting concept, you know? It's like a community board that's like it's like a borough board.
For garbage.
And yeah, on a.
Bill?
Compost, not the
Yeah.
same.
Well, sometimes it's very difficult to hear when multiple people are speaking at the same time when you're on this side of the fence. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. That's number one. Number two, regarding the Stonewall Village Fair, of course, I would like to see if it's possible to bring them. I know that they always get approved, but my standing objection to Broadway, which they're scheduled for June 1, 2025. Is it possible to make them, ask them to come and present to us again? And why they have to have that Broadway?
I just think it's kind of a waste of time because we do it every year and then they tell us the same thing every year and nothing changes.
I understand, but they should come and present to us.
Can you give me context to the,
So this is, the context is, this is a parade where a guy, I guess it has been decided that he has somewhat of a tenuous link to the actual Stonewall Rebellion. And they claim to have this car that was actually there, which may not have been there. And it's always a controversial one every year because of that, because it's seen, I guess, as, Rocio, you can tell me if there's something I'm missing, but I guess he's seen as kind of taking advantage of this Stonewall thing for their own good. And they're never able to tell us what organization the money actually goes to and all this stuff. But we always have him come and speak and he says the same thing. We've been doing this for years. SAPO knows who we are. They approve us. And so it's like, if we bring him in, he'll say the exact same thing he said last year. And then,
So let them come in and say the same things. You know, if they want this free money, let them work for it.
doesn't feel like the best use of our time, right? Because.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, if he's gonna say.
Think about it. I mean, of course, I will vote against them if I had an opportunity to, even though it's a renewal, because it really.
You want to vote against it now? Because it is in the renewals.
Say it again?
Do you want to vote against it now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Does anyone else want to vote against it?
No.
Okay. Okay,
Move to adjourn.
are we good? Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Did we have any follow-ups on engineering? We like kind of talked about it and then kind of just finished.
I think we still have a little bit of time there. We can.
That's not so much, that looks good.
It looks so good. I've been having to sit next to it all
So
night.
good.
What's the place?
Dawn
Where is
said
it?
she goes to the meeting.
Oh, Tico, they went a few blocks away.
Like,
Is that on Thompson or,
I haven't done.
or,
I
Thereabouts, it's close to Thompson.
yeah.
Okay, any new business?
Hold those.
Okay.
Streets run together.
Thank you, everybody.
It's Thompson. I used to
Good
walk
night.
to work that way. I worked at the door.
We end.